The exact death toll, it is something that is a movable figure that seems to be changing throughout the course of the day, but it seems somewhere around 30 when you take into account that they're trying to work out about 11 states that were involved in this snowstorm. They're trying to work out all of the accidents, all of the heart attacks that resulted as a result of shoveling. That was a big problem, especially here in New York. We saw about 5 or 6 people in the New York State area dying as a result of heart attacks. That lethal combination of excessive working out, physical activity combined with those very, very cold conditions, often proving lethal.
How are recovery efforts unfolding regarding the trail of flooding that has come about?
Well, that's one of the big worries. Of course, a lot of coastal towns around this area are in this flood path. Potentially what we're likely to see after record snowstorms could be record flooding. About 3 years ago, we had Hurricane Sandy in this New York, New Jersey area. Hundreds of thousands of people were affected. And the worry is it could potentially be even worse and potentially even costlier. It could be very expensive with not just insurance claims, but also repairs as well. So coastal communities in New Jersey and also in Delaware State having to deal with these floods already, and the worry is that it's only going to increase as all of the snow melts.
And of course, business and tourism has also been seriously affected. To what extent has this?
Well, there's always this figure that's bandied around when you have a complete shutdown of New York City, as we've had over the course of the weekend. The loss of money that the state has is around the region of $700 million, just $150 million of that coming from lost retail sales. And that's just for one state. Obviously, you take into account the 11 states that had to call a state of emergency over the weekend, and you see that it's a bigger problem. And of course, the shutdown is still continuing in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. The government still shut there. Many schools, many businesses still shut. D.C. really unable to cope with any amounts of snow, but certainly record amounts where we've seen over 2 feet, somewhere in the region of 70 centimetres of snow. It means that the whole of D.C., the capital of America, really just grinds to a halt.
And we've seen in New York, your transport system has actually been shut down over the weekend. The subways were closed, bridges were impassable, tunnels were flooded, etc. Now, what is the status right now? Well, things are back up and running. They did a bit of a stagger in terms of the things that they shut down. First of all, the buses, then they kept all but emergency vehicles off the road. They kept the underground subway running, but any overground trains that were involved in the subway or any commuter trains going in and out of the city, all of those were closed down. As of about 7 a.m. local time this morning, everything was pretty much back to normal. There were a couple of outer lying rail routes that were still having some difficulty, but they decided not to take the decision that they took 12 months ago to shut the entirety of the subway. They did that a year ago, the first time in 110 years that they decided to do that for a snowstorm. At that stage, there was outcry because we didn't have much snow. This time round, it may have been beneficial, but things now very much back to normal in New York City. Yes, it's been the second biggest snowstorm on record. What is the forecast right now as far as the weather is concerned over the next couple of days?
Well, for the time being, it's looking good. The next day or two, it's going to be very cold weather, but potentially blue skies. It is, however, the back end of this week, which is looking somewhat problematic. There is, at this stage, forecasts for more snowstorms, potentially not as big as the one that we saw over the weekend. A record snowdrop, second worst ever, records in dating back to 1869. So it is something of a historic event. The worry is that if we have more snow on top of the snow that we had over the weekend, if that hasn't melted yet, it's only going to pile up even higher. But hopefully the rescue teams are out on the streets, the clearing teams are very much underway, digging out the city, digging out the surrounding areas. The hope is that over the next few days they should be able to clear that backlog of snow.
Yes, and what is the extent of the digging out right now? I mean, how successful have they been and how much longer are they going to take?
Well, it's very much mixed results. A place like Manhattan here, New York City, they're doing very well. They've got big machinery that they can take down the main avenues to clear the roads, pushing the excess snow onto the sidewalks that they're then having to shovel off. But it's the more rural areas which are really struggling. Those places, the smaller communities, which are in some of the more rural states like rural Maryland and Virginia, also West Virginia, they are really struggling. And there's some people who are simply not getting any access because their roads are still impassable. So it's something of a mixed picture when you get out of the big cities, but they do hope that they will be able to clear the majority of the snow over the next few days.